Hi everyone, happy Sunday! Welcome to the first ever Secret Writers Showcase. This is an opportunity for people who are writing in Wigan and Leigh to share their work. Anybody. So it could be your diary entries, a little poem you write, a novel you're starting, whatever you're doing out there, if you're secretly writing, we want to hear it. So on tonight's showcase, I've got 4 different writers for you. The first one is called Susan Rigby. She has been volunteering at the Old Courts and now has got a job as a key worker, which is really exciting for her. And she's sharing a bit of a memoir that she wrote as part of some sessions at the Sunshine Writers Group in Sunshine House in Schools. I hope you enjoy.
Hiya, I'm Susan and I go to Sunshine Writers. This is a memoir I wrote about the time I used to go out around Wigan Town Centre in the 1970s. We would meet up on a Saturday night at Wigan Central Post Office, then wander down the road to the Victoria pub on Walgate, the meeting place for us all. The same crowd would venture in every week and you got to know everyone by name. The Vic, as it was known back then, was a pub to let off steam for us all. There are apartments above it now with the McCall's newsagents where we sat in the bar. Even though we were only 16 years old, under the legal age to consume alcohol, we did get served by a particular barman in his 20s or 30s who we chatted to. He was about 5 feet tall, quite jovial, with a small wispy beard and sparkling blue eyes. Questions were never asked way back then, as to how old we all were. We visited all the other pubs, like the Minorca and Clarence, all on the same street that allowed us in. Then we would go to our favourite place to dance the night away. Wigan Casino, which was a huge First World War building, with a bar downstairs and one upstairs, and a set of stairs which led to the top floor where you could hang over the thick brown banister and look out for a lad you fancied. It was not just for all-nighters dancing to Northern Soul, it was also a dance hall which opened from around 8 p.m. until 12:30 a.m. My friends and I would dress up in the latest fashions. In particular, I remember wearing a short maroon crimpling dress, which was like polyester material, and sling-back white shoes which would ease you across the huge maple dance floor. We would go along and queue outside to get in, everyone pushing because it would get full pretty quickly. Once inside, I was the one who would go to the bar and buy the drinks because I was the tallest and looked older. When the music started, we ran onto the dance floor and danced around our handbags in a circle. The music played by the resident DJ would resonate around the hall and our ears would pound to the Tamla Motown and hits of the 70s. You had to shout out to one another to be heard. It was a great meeting place for us all and we would let our hair down and enjoy ourselves. At the end of the night, the slow music would come on, and if you were lucky and a lad asked you to dance, you were like the cat that had got the cream. On one occasion I was walking up the stairs and of course there were the lads who drank too much. Someone threw a glass. My ankle was cut and an ambulance had to be called because there was blood everywhere. I had it stitched up at the hospital and had no anaesthetic because I had been drinking cider and blackcurrant. It was a favourite of mine. Oh, the pain. When I got home, my mum was worried about when she saw me get out of an ambulance. I didn't go out dancing for several weeks. Now that time has moved on. I think back to those days when we were young and free to be whatever we wanted to be. Time passes so quickly and I can imagine the ghost of Wigan Casino lingering on forever. The people who do not know Wigan, in the Grand Arcade Shopping Centre, There are drawings of Wigan Casino upstairs near the Costa Coffee. Nice memories to look at when you are sipping your tea or coffee.
I have to admit, there was a bit of nepotism there. It's the first showcase and I thought I'd get my mum on first. But don't worry, if you want to share your work, you can send it to us at the Old Carts and we can see what we can do. Next up, I'd like to introduce Natasha Tingle. Natasha runs Pemberton Pens, which is a group based at the bottom of Pem in Kit Green, and has been writing for a long time on the Wigan scene, and it's just really lovely to be able to share some of her work with you. And Natasha's been shielding during lockdown, so I think like I'm the first person out of her family she saw when I went to do some social distance filming, so it was just really nice to see her 360 degrees and you get to see her digitally. Enjoy.
Hi, my name's Natasha Tingle. I've been writing on the Wigan scene for many years. I'm a published poet, and that's my book. And I also run Pemberton Pens, which is a community writing group. This first poem that I want to read you is called Tile Hill, and is about a place in Coventry where I made a lot of memories and about going back. Tile Hill. Memories lift off the tarmac like an aroma. The postbox stands outside my old house like the Queen's Guard. My missives to my pen pals focused a swathe of love on that unmoving pillar. Jardine Woods, a romantic half-mile meander, a prudent oasis between student housing and impoverished corner shops. Time bends along the crescent. Antenatal classes here, there farm foods with their precious £2.50 off when we fill our freezer. This is the house from which I was kidnapped. This is the road where local kids ran me over on their bikes. This is the hall where we danced a ceilidh till we dropped, laughing all the way. These are the brambles I cried into, unable to take another step, no name for my illness. This is the field where a butterfly tried to mate with my hair clip. These are the streets I walked at 3 a.m, pacing, pacing and pacing. These memories are trodden into the fabric of the streets. These were intense times. Love happened here, and motherhood, and yet the scent is not nostalgia. If I had one wish, it would be world peace. Remove inequality from the map. Pass your resources across the culture gap. Don't turn a blind eye, open your eyelids. Educate every refugee's kids. Regardless of the wealth with which you were born, shelter the homeless in tents on your lawn. Let no minority be oppressed. Diversity is in everyone's interests. Religious freedom and tolerance should be norm, so long as fascism is not reborn. Neither will common goods be held by a dictator, nor commoner nor leader be marked as the greater. If the world gets more rich, let everyone benefit. Don't let the 1% hoard and inherit it. Teach kids that only the bad guy kills. Teach them diplomacy is a worthwhile skill. Understand the evolution of the brain. What factors draw us to war again? Develop a secular ethical layer, acceptable to every religion's naysayer. Will not judge worth between a prisoner and none. Will prevent mass shootings by impounding the gun. If you're not on board with all of this, maybe you'd better choose a different wish. So this last piece is about a dancer who dances in the Spring Equinox. and it's called Waterfall Dancer. He waits. Stock still in a stork stance, 1 foot firmly fixed beneath the rushing, pushing, washing. Familiar lichen squelches around his middle toe. He waits. Doused in blood blush pink this March morning for a vernal day to dawn. His schooled focus is without deviation. His body is ice, melting in the spring thaw. He waits. Toes twitching, minute muscle movements meld the trilling dawn chorus with treble tones into the tumult. A visceral wing beat in his shoulders and arms. He waits. Hips gyrate and rotate. The sun has risen, but ominous light cloud cover confounds the first rays. Dry winds warn of disease to farmers, to stock. Sunbeams that surround him are not yet warm. Cool glints of light portend frost on first fruits. He waits, all elastic potential tension, a beat born of birdsong, a ray warm in red hair, a jump, a gymnast, acrobat, tumbling fall, lithe all at once, teeming with motion, a dance, limber and languid, winter yawns and awakes. He cartwheels the stones in the life-giving river, like bees hop and dance from poppy to daisy, work their hives with honey and wax. Cool water arcs in glittering sprays, like salmon jump upstream into nets. Music this new day is losing its luster, yet fickle sun and wild water remain unappeased. In a closing sacrifice of grievous risk, a somersault finale lands at the terminal siskin call. The dancer bows his head, stock still, in a stork stance. Hues this equinox morning finally shift from blood red to rose.
Wonderful. Our next writer is an amazing poet called Sean Fallows. Sean comes to Sunshine Writers. He comes to Wigan Write Out Loud Poetry Night at the Old Court, and basically comes to anything he can actually physically or digitally get to. It's been really nice being able to run writers groups with Sean and the rest of the Sunshine Writers online during lockdown, and he's reading some work from his book. So if you want to buy his book, you know, just like look on the Facebook in the comments. I'm sure there'll be a link so you can buy one too.
Hiya, my name's Sean. As you can see, I'm in a wheelchair, but before we got locked down and stuff, I did this book. It's called Accessibility, and what it's really about is journeys, and everyone has journeys, but the main difference I found for myself is 90% are probably things made to accommodate you. So it's like, how do you adapt to get out and do stuff? So I'd say for me really, I spent a lot of years where I was just sort of floating around, just going through motions and stuff, and not really being that involved in doing many things. And then all of a sudden, everybody's journey and everybody's life has some kind of catalyst, some kind of thing what kicks it all off. And my catalyst was called Derek, and Derek was this guy. When I went to college, I studied to be a fitness instructor, and Derek was this lad who I shared a room with. And when I first got there, I've always seen a lot of different disabilities because that's what it was like when I was at school, but Derek was different. he couldn't talk, he couldn't do anything. He just had all these tags on the back of his chair. And when you get really kind of shook up like that, I thought to myself, if I don't start doing things, that could be me. So it really made me change. And this first poem's called What They Said to Derek. I shared a room with Derek when I was just 16. Unless you'd ever known Derek, it's hard to know what I mean. See, Derek only knew 3 words. They were, hello, you bugger, and mucky turds. And they told me Derek would be 31 soon, but all I heard was when Derek chuckled that childlike tune. Chuckled that childlike tune every day, calling me mucky turds, 'cause Sean was so hard to say. And what will we do with you, Derek, was what they always said. And what they always did with Derek was put Derek to bed. And every evening, when I went for my tea, about 6, Derek got his customary mushy Weetabix. And what will we do with you, Derek, was what they always said. And what they always did with Derek was put Derek to bed. See, if you can't talk, if you don't talk, you become just another piece of dirt in an already black grain, wondering if you're still sane. So that was my shock, sharp surprise. I never saw Derek with open eyes. See, I shared a room with Derek, and what they said to Derek, they'd never say, no, never do to me. From then, I struggle hard, away from the noose, to be free. Thank you. Yeah, so, as I say, that was a bit of a wake-up call seeing Derek. But it's not always like that with a chair. You don't always get a lot of, it's not all bleakness. There's a lot of interesting, just funny things that happen from just experimenting and trying stuff and just trying to be out there in a world. And one of the things that I tried once was I went speed dating. I don't know if anybody's been speed dating, but it's not really fast. It should be sort of false advertising when they said that, because there was a guy on the night, and he was trying to get me into the building, and it was like a Bear Grylls operation just to get down these steps. So when I got in there, I don't think I was prepared for how intense it would feel. I just thought it was going to be some light-hearted game, and it was horrible. One of the worst things that I've ever done. But there was a lot of humour in it by the end of it. So this is called speed dating. When you make your entrance on a Stanislaw lift, you've got all the time in the world to pick apart why you're not God's gift. Fashionably late, I just fashionably last. Yeah, I thought this thing was meant to be fast. And no sooner had I arrived than I literally wasn't able to get my feet under the table. The room went sticky and they rang the bell in a surreal communio. Fashionably late, I just fashionably last. Yeah, I thought this thing was meant to be fast. So okay, I'll let myself go with the game. I don't want to marry you, I just want to know your name. Number 22 gives me no clue. Your sorry smile, my frozen frown, just hard, a minute not down. And it went so bad, I did think to edge my bets, scream you all wankers, and say I've got Tourette's. But when you're fashionably late, I just fashionably last. I thought this thing was meant to be fast. It wasn't, so I left. Yeah, so in between speed dating and kind of messing that up, you know, I also travel a lot. And the thing about travelling, you know, everyone says it, it's true that it gives you a different way of looking at stuff, a different perspective. And I do a lot of travelling on the Eurostar, and because of that I've managed to go to Holland quite a few times. And I've realised that when I've travelled there, a lot of things in Holland, you know, they might have the same problems, but they look at it differently. And just because they look at it differently, it makes me feel different. And one example of this is going to one of my favourite places, the Red Light District. And, you know, all the way through the book, you know, I try and explain things that I'm no different than anyone else. And the red light was a massive example of this because, you know, it's something that everyone does when they first go to Holland. But again, you know, with the chair, everything's kind of trial and error. And I've had a lot of great experiences when I've been to Holland, but every once in a while, it's not really worked. And this is a poem about one of the times in the red light when it went really bad, to be honest. You know, I'm always polite, and I rang up the guy to explain that I was in a chair and stuff. I said, listen, it doesn't bother me, mate, but just so you know, you've got to tell the lady of the night when she comes that I'm in a chair, just so there's no friction, so there's no weird feeling. Just explain that. But being typically Dutch, I think the guy just forgot about it. And when she came, I think she thought I was like, I'd made a mistake and I'd ordered some kind of pizza. And I said, no, it's not wrong. I've sorted it. I've sorted it with the boss. And then we sat down and stuff, and she kept looking at my chair. I mean, I'm used to people looking at my chair, but then she got on the phone, and I've never felt as awkward in my life. She said, she got on the phone to her boss and she said, you know I don't do the invalid cart. And it was one of the worst things I've ever had to sit and listen to, because I knew she was a nice person, and I think it was just kind of maybe the place that she come from. She'd never seen a guy in a wheelchair, probably never seen a guy talk that much, you know, and it was just, however bad someone's opinion is, sometimes there's no changing it. You've just got to accept it. So I did. She left, and I wrote this poem. This was the night that I realised that I could have been George Clooney and it wouldn't have made any difference. So this poem's called Rewriting the Invalid Cart. I'm calm, I'm ready. I opened the door. She didn't even bother to ask my name. But I wasn't prepared for the words that came. Yet they're only words. What harm do they do? She looked at me and said, it's not you, babe. Don't take it to heart. I know do, the invalid cart. And well, to be honest, I prefer longer legs too, babe. But you take the next best thing. You won't hear me complaining. I'm no king. Do what you like. Do as you please. I wasn't expecting all your keys. If anyone knows the Bob Dylan song, it ain't me, babe. At this point, I felt like singing that. But there are no good words for the things you can't do. I felt such sadness, like anger, instantly turned the room blue. Sticks and stones kept burning my bones. You can't break what's broken anyway. I dimmed the anger in my immediate voice. It was all I could do but accept. For a choice is a choice, however misinformed. She looked at me and said, it's not you, babe. Don't take it to heart. I know do, the invalid cart. No matter, was then the thought. If you had sex on your mind, you wouldn't last 2 minutes anyway. So if I'm not your poison, if I'm not your pill, though you hit me hard and left me like roadkill, it's a short wound and not a bit of grudge. I won't stand still. So as I say, I've done a lot of travelling in Holland, but long before that, I just started doing sort of like anyone, just trying to do short journeys really, little things, like I bought an Harrington jacket just after I was leaving college, and it came with this flyer advertising a scooter weekend. So I just thought, well, I'll charge my batteries up and kind of try to build on the confidence I'd got from college. I just thought, well, I'm going to go to this place. I didn't really know anyone, but I thought I'm going to go to this place and just see what happens, because I love music. And while I was at this scooter weekend, that was kind of the Guinness drinking phase then, and I nearly run over this guy at the bar. I nearly run over his foot, and I was expecting a bit of a bollocking, to be honest. But he just turned around and said to me, in a like the most northern voice you've ever heard, like worse than me. He turned around and said, "Are you with Crocker?" And I said, "No, mate, I'm just here on my own. I've got a jacket." So from then he said, "Well, don't worry about it." He said, "Just come over to our table." And at that time, my confidence was flying, and he said, "What do you do?" And I said, I do like 3 poems and that." And I thought, well, at that time, he said, "Well, how many have you got?" And I said, "I've got loads, but I only had about 3, to be honest." But I did this poem called "At the Bus Station," and then later on in the night, we was watching the main band and that. I sat on the table all night, and we was watching this band, Bad Manners, and then one of the lads said to me, he said, "We're going to get you on. We're going to get you on if you want." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Yeah, we can get you on, don't worry about it. We've sorted it." And I made my way to the front, and then all of a sudden, one of the most surreal things that I think's ever happened to me, like loads of these skinheads lifted me up, like I was one of them Jesus statues what people carry through the street. They just lifted me up, and they managed to get me on stage. And I wrote this poem about it because it went that well. It's called "The Butcher, the Builder, and the Weekend Man." When those mods and skinheads lifted my chair on stage, my confidence flickered and then really came of age. And what else can you do when a full crowd's looking at you? Well, for a good 10 minutes, I played bongos from that song Special Brew. And all in one night, I met the butcher, the builder, Craig and Glenn. We covered the country like Page and Pen. I saw grafters change into big kids, those unstoppable weekend men. Them salt of the earth people who'd always give you a 10. Our security was this big fella called LV. One of those guys who never did fit into his size. He told a shed load of stories and had the softness of Bambi's eyes. Chips in Whitby, cakes in Clackeaton, quite a bit of Guinness then followed, that life yet to be eaten. When those mods and skinheads lifted my chair on stage so high, like 1966 all over again, I can't lie. We never paused for the moment, but I never wanted that moment to die. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean, for sharing that with us. And our final writer of the showcase is a big bundle of energy. It's Mr. Ian Whiteley. Comes from Yorkshire originally. We have adopted him. He is the host at the Write Out Loud Poetry Night at the Old Courts, and just a fantastic human in terms of encouraging people and helping them on the literature scene. Enjoy.
Hello there, my name's Ian Whiteley. I am the host of the Write Out Loud Poetry Night at the Old Courts in Wigan, which is held every second Thursday of the month. And we've been doing that online with Zoom until we can all meet back up again. I'm going to do a few poems for you, some political, some funny, some sad. This one's called All Hail the Great Sultana. Consider the sultana, the jewel in my porridge. It's not the kind of fruit that you can just go out and forage. It started out in life a bulbous, juicy grape, but sat out in the sun too long, and now it's changed its shape. It's dark, wizened and wrinkled like it's fallen from your nose, and probably looks like your granny when she's taken off her clothes. It doesn't rate too highly in the fruity good luck stakes, but it's a real superstar when you're baking Christmas cakes. It spices up a curry, and it's vital for a scone, and that's the real way to pronounce it for those of you who like a moan. Mothers stick it in your lunchbox in case you want a snack to eat, and it goes well in your muesli 'cause it's really, really sweet. So you can keep your massive melons and your berries black and blue, your apples, pears and pomegranates, strawberries and raspberries too. When you want to get the job done, I have to say the top banana is the ugly little superfruit. All hail the great sultana. I'm in a poetry and music collective called Bard Company, and we do quite a lot of political gigs and write poems and songs. We've got a new book out called Bard Company's Little Red Book, which is available. I'll let you know the details later. So here's a fairly political one. It's heavy on irony. It's called Otherness. We all know they're riddled with otherness, and they're bringing it over here. I don't care if they have the same body parts, it's their otherness that I fear. They'll only have to look at you and you'll catch their otherness too. They'll be lazy, scrounging, otherness-spreading heathens, not like me and you. I bet they had lives of champagnes and caviar in the land of the otherness folk. I don't know why they want to leave that behind. They must be having an otherness joke. They'll rape my wife, indoctrinate my kids, make it just like otherness land if we little Englanders don't rise up and make a Churchillian sort of stand. I don't want otherness to be taught in schools. I don't want them in my backyard. So you lily-livered liberals had better not play that otherness card about how they're running from persecution over there in the otherness place. They're not like us, never will be. They're not part of the human race. So sink their fucking dinghies and send the buggers back to their otherness war zones. I feel like we're under attack from a horde of otherness bastards. I mean, they're nothing like us Brits. They have no heart, empathy or morals. But then again, if the cap fits. Yeah, so during this pandemic, we've been doing our poetry nights on Zoom. And I've also been taking part in the NaPoWriMo, where you write one poem a day right the way through April. And enjoyed it so much that I went back to the earlier ones that are online and did another 2 months. So I got to 90 and then thought, well, I might as well do another 10 and make it 100. So I did 100 poems in 100 days during lockdown. And I wrote this one on the 100th day. 100 days in Plague Town. I met a man in Plague Town with bird's beak and a long black coat. He carried a cane in his left hand. He spoke to me and I quote, "Don't travel from your fire, son. Go run away and hide. For fear stalks the streets of Plague Town. Some are ill and others have died." So I went back home as he told me and I sat and counted the days. A man may find comfort with family and another find hope when he prays, but I seek the sanctity of books. So I started writing down words between the silence prevalent in Plague Town, just my pen and the song of the birds. Though I did what old Beaky told me and I followed the words that he said, I knew I could go anywhere that I liked in the playgrounds inside my head. So I went to the past and the future and spent time with strangers and friends, and I wrote it all down in a big black book, and only I will know the day that it ends. There's sadness walking in Plague Town. It's everywhere I can see, but I hold of that sadness with creation and all manner of word poetry. 100 days I have sat here and 100 poems I've written. Though the wolf's been howling and pawing my door, I'm still unrepentant, unbitten. Today I walked out in Plague Town, that old bastard with beak he had hidden, but I knew he was just in the shadows and would come out again if he was bidden. So tomorrow I'll turn a new page, like the last 100 days I have done. I will take up my pen and go wandering in search of poem 101. Yeah, you might have noticed the accent. I'm from Wakefield in West Yorkshire, but I've lived in Wigan now on 20 years. When I lived in, follow Wakefield Trinity. When I lived in Wakefield, I used to play for a Sunday League football team. And this will be very relevant to a lot of fellas who've done this, where the football was second or third on the list to why you actually did it. It was more about the camaraderie and the drinking. This is called half time. I was playing centre-half with Athletic 5-0 up in a prestigious third-round tie of the Intercity Cup. Sunday morning football after beer the night before. The referee blew for half-time. It was a disappointing score. The captain's girlfriend, Elsie, brought a tray of oranges out. Some of us took one and supped and tried to forget the rout. The goalkeeper ran to the changing room. He seemed in such a hurry after 45 minutes, holding in last night's curry. The centre-forward pulled out a mirror and teased his Frank Worthington quiff. The winger Dazza sneaked off behind a tree and rolled a sneaky spliff. Our fullback Bazza took a slug from a carefully concealed hip flask, hidden in his sock as a shin pad if the referee was to ask. Our midfield maestro, Wazza, said he was going for a piss, but sneaked off with his girlfriend, who he was seen to grope and kiss. The manager just sat and stared at the antics of his team and the fading of his ambitions and that distant cup final dream. The substitute was leaning, having a smoke by the goalpost, and Mickey Mack, the right full-back, had given up the ghost and gone off early to the pub to get himself a beer. The crowd was getting agitated and both of them let out a cheer. The referee looked at his watch and blew his whistle loud. Time to start the second half before we lost the crowd. So the Albion pulled their socks up and took to the field of play. We ended up losing 13-0. The second leg's next week away. So yeah, I like to write political stuff as well. And a lot of that outlet comes through Bad Company. And there's information about the CDs and the books that I do personally and with Bad Company on my website, which is www.thecrowsofalbion.com. I'm on Facebook and on for Bad Company and for the Crows of Albion, and we've also got websites for both of those. So just do a search. This is something I wrote as a poem that we turned into a song, and it's the title of the last CD of music that I did, recorded at the Music Projects with John Kettle. This is called Screaming Blue Murder. I'm screaming blue murder at the state of the nation and how we blame our ills on Muslims and immigration. Talking about people as though they're an infestation. I'm screaming blue murder. I'm screaming blue murder at the bankers' greed and the people on the street who we can't seem to feed. The way that we trample on sexuality and creed. I'm screaming blue murder. I'm screaming blue murder at the disheartening mess of the education system, transport and the NHS, and how we're going to get out of it is anybody's guess. I'm screaming blue murder. I'm screaming blue murder at the neo-fascist rise, about how we're indoctrinated by Tory newspaper lies and the way we look away when an industry dies. I'm screaming blue murder. I'm screaming blue murder that the rich are getting more, while zero-hour contracts are hammering the poor, and the way we still find money to support another war. I'm screaming blue murder. I'm screaming blue murder at intolerance and hate, about the way you can't criticise a persecution state without being dragged into anti-Semitic debate. I'm screaming blue murder. I'm screaming blue murder for all the bluster and fuss caused by unsupported facts on the side of a bus, about how just 1/3 of the country somehow speaks for all of us. I'm screaming blue murder. I'm screaming blue murder at what this government's done to the weak and vulnerable, to the poor man and his son, and as they stand accused with a smoking gun, I'm screaming blue murder. My heart is on the left and my blood is red. Austerity doesn't work, it has to be said. Our ethics and our values are morally dead. I'm screaming blue murder. This is a personal poem. My dad fought in the war, the Second World War in Asia, and he was one of the Forgotten Army. And VJ Day a couple of weeks ago remembered them and the signing of the peace treaty, and they were left there longer to fight than the war in Europe. And this is a metaphor for what he brought home with him. It's called the bayonet in the shed. He put it there in 49 in a woodworm-riddled drawer, wrapped it in a greasy rag, a remnant from the war. On top of it he laid his medals. Nothing more was said until the day my father took the bayonet from the shed. We had pestered many times, and he had said perhaps when we asked him if he'd killed any Krauts or any Japs, his eyes fixed on something far away, as though searching for the dead. But we found out what we wanted when he took the bayonet from the shed. He was a sergeant major in the hellhole that was Burma, where the Japanese snipers would target you on a murmur. He was proud of the campaign and the boys that he had led, but he never ever talked about the bayonet in the shed. He didn't hate all foreigners, and he said the greatest worker that he'd ever met in the war was good old Johnny Gurkha. That being brave wasn't about killing. He was happy when they fled. Then he went down the garden and took the bayonet from the shed. He was gone a short while, and when we saw him coming back, he was no longer marching along a hero's track. We witnessed the aged warrior return with heavy tread, shoulders slumped in surrender, with the bayonet from the shed. He moved the cloth reverently and laid the medals by its side, and for the first time in my life we watched as my father cried. We sat with him and looked at it and thought of bodies that had bled after being introduced to the bayonet in the shed. Okay, here's a political one, and I'll finish with this one. So don't forget, if you'd like to read some more of my poems, I've got 3 books out. I've released 4 CDs of music and a CD of poetry, and Bard Company have got 2 CDs and a book out, and you can get those from www.thecrowsofalbion.com. And the Crows of Albion and Bard Company are on each have a website, and they're also on Facebook if you want to have a look there. So I'll finish with this one. This was written for a festival that's in Wakefield where the miners come to town and march their banners through the town. And at the time we were thinking about the promise that when they went away to fight in the First and Second World War, they were promised when they returned they would have a land fit for heroes, and that promise is still outstanding in my reckoning. So this is called Raising the Standards. Thanks for listening. You said that you wanted a land fit for heroes, a place to call home that they'd show off with pride. But somewhere along the way you forgot the reasons they fought and the reasons they died. They thought they were fighting for honour and justice, suppressing the tyrants and saving our land, return to a country that punished the workers for banding together and making a stand. So your songs are all dirges to the heroically fallen, and your words all platitudes for their loss of life. Your actions speak louder than all of your promises. Lies, a pandemic, and betrayals are rife. 'Cause they died in the trenches with promises hollow, driving them forward and ringing in ears, while you pocketed money that should have been spent making jobs for survivors and easing their fears. Now we march all together and sing for the future, while honouring those who we lost in the past. We still want to believe all the promises made as our young men were slaughtered, dismembered and gassed. Prosperity offered like chocolate at Christmas, peace in our times and everlasting hope. All that they got were more broken dreams, more pointless wars, more money for old rope. The bosses got fat on the toil of their workers, the bankers got fat on their interest-rich loans, and the man who came back from the war that he fought in was treated no better than their graveyard of bones. So bang the drum, comrade, and never forget that if silence is demanded, then shout and be loud, and don't let this government try to sell history as though it is something for which we should be proud. A century has passed, and they've destroyed the mines. They've doused the steel furnaces and grounded the docks, left northern communities suffering and reeling in the self-proclaimed privatised school of hard knocks. There are still poor people living in poverty. Food banks are prevalent, folk on the street. They cannot look after the homeless and feeble. The old cannot pay for their lighting and heat. From the mud of the trenches they came back home. The future was grey as the clothes on their back. They demanded we give them something to cling to, a future of light in their visions of black. England's green fields, the red of the blood, the gold we were promised, the blue of the sky. These are the colours we raise as our standard, marching together with banners held high. My name's Ian Whiteley. Thank you for listening.
And that's it for tonight's showcase. I hope you join us next month for more poetry, short stories, autobiography, script. I'm really excited to share with you next month's writers. And if you are maybe secretly writing at home, maybe you could consider trying to get along either in real life or virtually to one of the writers groups we have in Wigan. There are so many. There are Pemberton Pens, Sunshine Writers, Dark Writers over in Lee, the Secret Writers Club, Ashton Writers. So if you want details of any of those, ask in the comments and maybe I can put you in touch. Have a lovely evening. Goodbye.
If you've enjoyed watching the Old Courts live and you'd like to make a donation to support the work we do, please head over to www.theoldcourts.com/donate. This year's been incredibly difficult for most arts organisations, and we're no different. But with a huge effort and support from you and from our funders, we've managed to secure our organisation and the jobs of every staff member. We've also provided 343 artists with paid work for the Old Courts Live, and our volunteers have delivered over 700 food parcels and made 600 calls to isolated local residents. But the battle isn't over yet. We're currently closed to the public with zero income, and we don't know how long this closure is going to last. If you can help by making a donation, then you're helping to secure your arts